Welcome to another lecture by MedicoMedics, Learning Made Easy. Anatomy Chapter 3, the Muscular System. Now in this lecture we will discuss the functions of the muscular system, types of muscle tissue, structures of skeletal muscle, the physiology of muscle contraction, mention major muscle groups, muscle movements, some disorders of the muscular system, its clinical relevance, and end with a summary. Now let's briefly talk about the functions of the muscular system. First of all, movement. We have stability, maintaining posture and stabilizing joints. The muscular system is involved in heat production, so it generates heat during muscle activity. Protection. It helps shielding internal organs, for example, our abdominal muscles. Now, we have different types of muscle tissue. First, we have skeletal muscle. These are voluntary, striated, and attached to bones. By voluntary means we control them. Then we have cardiac muscle. These are involuntary, so we do not control them. They are striated as well and found, for example, in the heart. Here you can see cardiac muscles illustrated here. Furthermore, we have smooth muscle. These are also involuntary, so they're not in our control, but they are non-striated. These are found in the walls of hollow organs, for example, our intestines or our blood vessels. So the key bits to take here is skeletal muscle is voluntary. All right? Cardiac muscle and smooth muscle are involuntary. And what differentiates them or sets them apart is that cardiac muscle is striated muscle, while smooth muscle is non-striated. And they are found in different locations, where skeletal muscle is attached to bones. Cardiac is mainly found in the heart, or is found in the heart. Cardiac stands for heart. And smooth muscle can be found in the walls of organs like the intestines and our blood vessels. Now let's turn our attention to the structure of skeletal muscle. So in macroscopic anatomy, first. So muscles are like ropes, composed of smaller bundles of fibers called fascicles. Another important thing to remember is that tendons attach muscles to bones. And if you remember from our previous lecture, we talked about the structure of a bone. And we mentioned that on the outer parts, we had something called articular cartilage, where joints are formed. Now, we said that the shaft of the bone, the main part, the dense part, right, was called the diaphysis. And the outer sides, the ends, were called the epiphysis. Now, we also said that the most of the bone, aside from the articular cartilage, was covered by an outer layer called the periosteum. And this is where if we have bone, a muscle here, right? This is where the muscle is attached with its muscle tendon to the bone. Now, moving on, we have the microscopic anatomy. So, myofibrils contain actin and myosin filaments. These slide to make the muscle contract. Another important concept is sarcomeres, which are the functional units of muscle contraction. Other key structures are the sacro or sarcolemma, which is the outer covering of the muscle cell. We have the sarcoplasmic reticulum, where we store and release calcium, which starts the contraction. And then we have something called T-tubules. These are tiny tunnels that spread the signal to contract across the muscle. So what is happening then is that when your brain, since all of this starts in your brain, we're talking about skeletal muscle, right? So if you remember, skeletal muscle was voluntary and it's under conscious control. But anyway, when our brain sends a signal to move, this signal travels down nerves, right, to the muscle. And what it does is that this signal reaches the T tubules, and these then spread it across the muscle cell. After that, the sarcoplasmic reticulum releases calcium, which tells the actin and myosin in the sarcomeres to slide past each other. When they slide past each other, this will shorten the muscle and create movement. So imagine two things slightly separated. And when the signal comes, this part, let's say, goes down here, and the other one goes above it. So they slide past each other, and this long structure becomes, let's say, this size. That's a very poor illustration. So a better one would be, let's try building a couple of myosin here, which is the thicker parts. And we will put blue for actin here, let's say, which is smaller than myosin. Now, when this signal comes, these two, this one will move in. So pretend that this is a big muscle. When these go in, this part here and this part here will move inwards. And this will shorten the length of the muscle. And this is what happens when contraction occurs. And when this contraction is occurring in the muscle, this will pull this tendon, right? Because this muscle, pretend this illustration is here, right? This muscle shortens. And as it shortens, this tendon will be pulled on. And this moves the bone because it's attached to it. And there we have movement created. So in summary then, muscles are made of bundles, fascicles containing fibers. Inside these fibers are myofibrils with sarcomeres that do the contracting. Then we have the supporting structures like the sarcolemma, the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and T tubules. These coordinate and control the contraction. So let's just repeat and go through the physiology of muscle contraction. What are the steps? First, we have excitation. So nerve impulses trigger release of acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction. The sarcoplasmic reticulum, as we mentioned, releases calcium. Myosin then, the head of the myosin binds to actin. Myosin pulls actin, shortening the sarcomere. And after that, there is relaxation. So calcium is reabsorbed and the muscle relaxes. And what is essential for contraction and relaxation is ATP, energy. So first of all, your brain sends a signal through a nerve. It releases acetylcholine, a chemical. And this tells the muscle, let's get to work. After that, the signal makes the sarcoplasmic reticulum, meaning the muscle's calcium storage, to release calcium. And calcium acts like a key to unlock the contraction process. What happens then is the myosin, which is the thick filaments, grab into actin, the thin filaments, creating a connection between the two. So the myosin pulls the actin closer, shortening the muscle. And this is how the muscle contracts and creates movement. And afterwards, when all of that is done, calcium will go back into storage, and myosin lets go of the actin and the muscle relaxes. Now let's briefly discuss the major muscle groups. So we have the head and neck. Here are muscles involved in facial expression. For example, the orbicularis oris and the zygomaticus. We have the mastication muscles here, like the masseter and the temporalis muscles. Further down, we have the torso. So we have the pectoral muscles, the intercostal muscles, and the diaphragm. We have the abdominal muscles, the rectus abdominis and the obliques. In the upper limb, we will find the deltoid, the biceps brachii, the triceps brachii. In the lower limbs, the quadriceps, the hamstrings, and the gastrocnemius, or gastrocnemius. It's not important. And then the back, we have the trapezius, the latissimus dorsi, and the erector spinae, or spinae. Now take a few seconds or minutes and try and see if you can identify, based on these illustrations, each of these 5 different muscle groups. Now, muscle movements. So, types of muscle movements facilitated by muscles. We have flexion and extension, meaning bending and straightening. There is an illustration of that. We have abduction and adduction, which means moving away from or towards the body. We have rotation, so turning around an axis. So if your arm is set to your side and you are told to abduct, you are moving your arm away from the body. If we're saying adduction, we mean you're pulling it closer to your body. Then we have elevation and depression, so lifting or lowering a body part. We have pronation and supination, so turning the palm downward or upward. Supination is upwards, pronation downwards. And let's mention some disorders of the muscular system. So muscular dystrophy, it's a genetic disorder causing muscle weakness. Myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disorder affecting the neuromuscular junction. In future lectures, we will talk about what this junction is. We have tendinitis, so we have inflammation of tendons. We have muscle strains where we're overstretching or tearing muscles. We have cramps, so sudden involuntary muscle contractions. So in summary then, the muscular system enables movement, stability, and heat production. We have 3 types of muscles. We have skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscles. And if you remember, skeletal muscles were voluntary, cardiac and smooth muscle are involuntary. Muscle contraction relies on the sliding filament model. You remember myosin and actin, and the sarcomeres, etc. Major muscle groups are categorized by body regions, like the head and neck, or torso, upper limb, lower limbs, etc. And that's the end of chapter 3. Thank you for listening. Continue now to chapter 4.